Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a deep house stab using Serum in the style of Eli Fur. We're going to be using the reference track Feel the Fire, so go and have a listen to that on Spotify. It's the first few introductory stabs that we're going to be using as our reference. This is the sound that we're going to be making. So what I've got here in Ableton is just a MIDI track with Serum loaded onto it, and that is an empty or initialized version of Serum. I've not done anything to it. And what you've also got, using the link in the description down below, you can download this MIDI file called Feel the Fire. And all this is the chords that are playing those stabs at the start of that Eli Fur song. So you can drag this in just like that. And there we go, we have the chords at the bottom. Let's have a listen to this. A warning, Serum will be quite loud playing these on its initialized presets, and maybe turn it down a little bit. Okay, so that's the raw sound that we're going to be sculpting. Now let's go back into Serum and start making this. First things first, we need to pick our oscillators. Now these are what are generating the sound, and they're going to have a massive impact on the sort of tone and texture of this sound. Now there's no right and wrong for this, and once we've got it all set up, you can swap these around to see what you like best. I'm just going to start with oscillator A, leave that as it is, and oscillator B, we're going to come into this menu. I'm going to go for FM Splat. Well, that's quite sharp, isn't it? Let's try FM Freak. There we go. That's what I'm going to go with as my raw sound, my block of stone that I'm going to sculpt down. The next thing that we're going to look at is the envelope just down here so that we get the shape of the sound right. So I'm going to add about 10 milliseconds, 11 milliseconds of attack. That's essentially a fade in. I'm going to take the sustain all the way down so that when we press and hold the note, it doesn't keep going. I do have more resources in the description below if you need to learn Serum in a bit more depth. So I'm assuming a little bit of previous knowledge, but you can just do what I'm doing and get the same results. We're going to drag the decay down to about 500 milliseconds, and we're going to set the release to be about the same, the release being essentially a fade out. Now let's have a listen to this. Okay, so that's pretty good. One of the best things about Serum is that these envelopes are really flexible in the sense that here you've got this, which you can adjust, and this has a really big impact on this stab sound. So what I'm going to do is hit play, and I'm going to play with this, and you'll hear what difference that's making to the sound. So I like it about there, so I'm going to leave that. The next thing that we need to do is add in a filter, and this is going to take away those high frequencies. We want them for a little bit, but we don't want them all of the time. We want to filter some of them out. So I'm going to turn the filter on just here. And because I'm using oscillator B as well, I need to make sure that oscillator B is checked here so that that's actually being filtered. And let's have a listen. I'm going to open the filter all the way up, and then I'm going to hit play and bring the filter down, and you'll hear what that's doing. Okay, so let's add some drive and fat just to give it a little bit of drive and grit. And you'll notice now that we can't really hear the high end. And what we want to do is essentially have the filter go like this, start open and then come down as the chord hits. The way to do that is leave the filter where you want it to finish. And I'm going to use envelope 1 as a modulation source to bring that filter cutoff down. I've just dragged it onto the cutoff, and I'm going to use this dial to adjust how much we're adjusting the filter from where it starts to where it ends. So let's have a listen to that. And straight away you can see there that we're clipping. So what I'm going to do is turn down Serum in here. Okay, so you can have a play with that and set it to where you want it. That's totally up to you. Add a little bit of resonance, that might sound nice. And resonance is just an EQ boost at the filter cutoff frequency. As I say, as we go through this, if none of this is making sense, then I've got some resources to help you learn Serum from the ground up, all about modulation, envelopes, all those kind of things. That's in the description below. Now that we're here, what I'm going to add is reverb and delay, simply using send A and send B inside Ableton, which are pre-set up for us as a reverb and a delay. Okay, so we're pretty much there. All I'm going to be doing now is adding little tweaks. The first little tweak is I'm going to come into the effects section of Serum, and I'm going to go for just some relatively subtle effects. So let's start with a flanger all the way on, and let's see what this sounds like. Okay, so I don't want it quite that drastic, so I'm just going to turn the mix down to around a third. Let's go for some chorus as well. I really like the way this sounds. Again, relatively subtly. And what I'm also going to do is add an EQ. I'm going to turn this onto an LPF, which is a low pass filter. Turn that Q down because I don't want that little bump there. And we want the frequency maybe around 150. Just to cut out the real lows so that this isn't interfering with the kick drum or the bass. Great, so let's add another tweak here, which is a more advanced bit of modulation. We're going to use an LFO, which stands for low frequency oscillator, which you can't actually hear, but it just moves another parameter, and we're going to get it to move the cutoff frequency. So let's drag it onto here and have a listen to this. This is going to sound a bit weird. Okay, so that's not what we want it to be doing. We don't want it to be moving quite that quickly and quite that drastically. We want this to be a bit more subtle. So I'm going to uncheck BPM so that it's not locked to the tempo of the track. And I'm just going to gradually turn this down to a couple of hertz, maybe. Maybe 1 hertz. And I don't want it moving anywhere near that far. All I want to do is add a little bit of variation as to where the cutoff frequency is for a little bit of randomness. And yeah, I think it adds a really nice effect. So let's have a listen to that. There we go. So that just means that we can't exactly tell where the cutoff frequency is going to be at any one point, and that's a nice little bit of randomness that we've added in there. The final thing that I'm going to do is add an EQ and maybe even a saturator using Ableton's own plugins. So let's do that now. Let's close Serum. Just double check that the volume's okay. Yeah, we're all clear there. If that's clipping, again, turn the master down. What we want is some audio effects. I've saved these as favorites, which you can do by going into audio effects, right-clicking and adding a color, and then you can rename that color. So I'm going to add an EQ8. These definitely, EQ is the strongest tool that you have to shape your sounds. I'm going to add a little bit of high end where I think it sounds nice. So let's have a listen. take out some of the lows so that we know we're getting everything. And I want to scoop out some of these mid frequencies. So let's listen to before and after. So pretty subtle, but just adding a little bit more brightness. And I'm also going to go for a saturator. Going to leave it on analog clip, add maybe 4 dB of drive and take that off of the output. Turn on soft clip so that we're not getting that harsh clipping. And go for about 50% wet dry. Awesome, so that is pretty much the finished result. What you're able to do if you want to tweak this to sound slightly different is you can change out the oscillator. Let's go for something just completely random. You can also add unison. And get some really weird results, but that's up to you to play with. You can also adjust and some of the envelope settings, add a bit more release. You can also change the effects. This is a starting template for you to really take this and make it your own. So there we go. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you want to learn Serum in a little bit more depth, as I said during the tutorial, there's a link below to my best resources for learning Serum from the ground up. And if you want to start making tracks that DJs will play and labels will sign, then definitely check out my Ableton Accelerator full course, again using the link in the description below this video. Thanks for spending a bit of time with me today, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.